I look. It's if you thought the Dan Andrews show was superior during COVID, watch the next 4 years. And the thing is, I'm worried about who comes after Dan, because Dan could bow out in this 4-year term, leave on a high, get promoted to some great thing overseas, or, become a socialist lord in China or something. The guy that comes after Dan will try to outdo Dan. And that is a scary, scary thought.
So, as we all know, Dan Andrews, the man we all love and aspire to be, has won the Victorian election. He's now entering his 3rd term in government. So, with this happening, as a lot of people were predicting, what do you think this means for Victoria, and what kind of things can you expect to see playing out there?
Yeah, so it pretty much played out exactly how I thought it might. It's the media keeps saying that Labor won. Labor didn't win this election. Labor's primary vote was at 38%. The coalition's was at 32%. There was no credible alternative put in the marketplace. There is a slowing movement to minor parties in Victoria, but the minor parties that they're going for are Greens and Teals. They're socialists, right? So the vote inside Victoria went left. And a big chunk of it, in some seats, 30% of it, went so hard to the Teals, whose policies were basically Greens policies, but in a Bentley, that I am just dumbfounded. Socialism, and Chardonnay socialism is alive and well in Victoria. The surprising thing in the numbers, when you keep digging down through the numbers for me, was traditional Labor seats in the outer east, where the manufacturing used to be and all that sort of stuff in Melbourne, went more Liberal, as in there was larger swings, 16, 17, 18, 20% swings to the Liberals. So they're saying to Labor, you've forgotten us. They're saying to the Liberals, we're here for the taking, but you don't want to take us. So we're lost. So it's really, really interesting. Victoria, look, it's, if you thought the Dan Andrews show was superior during COVID, watch the next 4 years. And the thing is, I'm worried about who comes after Dan, because Dan could bow out in this 4-year term, leave on a high, get promoted to some great thing overseas, or, become a socialist lord in China or something. The guy that comes after Dan will try to outdo Dan. And that is a scary, scary thought. So, because it won't go back to the centre, it'll keep going further left. So if you look at the numbers, Labor had 57, they'll probably end up with 53, 54 seats. So they pretty much didn't lose anything. The couple of seats they lost, they'll probably lose one to the Teals, and they'll lose one, maybe two to the Greens, which is, basically their vote splitting off. The Liberals will probably lose 1 or 2 seats. But once again, we're not really sure where. There's still 8 or 9 seats that are very close and in doubt. And they're the ones where the change is really going to happen. I thought Labor would end up with 50, 51. They're going to end up with a few more than that. The Libs, the Libs have got a real problem because their policies were as bad, if not worse, than Labor. And their vote and everything went backwards. So what that's, that should tell them a lot, that they should run and change their tack, but they won't. I expect that they'll try and hunt the inner city Melbourne seats. If you have a look at all Australia's capital territories now, or capital cities, sorry, the very inner city of these cities, because we've got so many bureaucrats, and pretty much ABC journalists, they all live in the inner city. They all believe Twitter's the real world. They all drink Chardonnay and drive Bentleys. So they're all in this own little bubble. And that just means that you're going to end up with more and more people going left. I on Saturday night, I was watching I think it was one of the Teal candidates give a speech. And when you looked at everyone in the background of this woman, they were all white, middle-aged women, swooning in jewelry, who had a massive guilt complex, and you just knew that all they did every day was go to the gym and lunch and gossip about, all those idiots that work for a living. It was the most undiverse, non-Anglo-Saxon room that I have ever seen. All right. And then the Teals are the first ones to turn around and say that the Liberal Party's got a problem with diversity. Right. It's just ridiculous. They really are the masters of their own bullshit. So that's just a bit of an overthink. The biggest underlying current that has come out of this as well is that demographics are now well and truly at play. I think I brought this up when we talked about the census data. Well, this was the first election where you could actually see it. So, and we'll take the two major groups, the millennials and the boomers. The millennial portion of the voting population in Victoria last election was 18%. This election, it was 36%, doubled. The portion of boomers in the same economy at the 2019 election was 56%. At this election, 37 to 38%, 37.5, 38%. It's come off as much as the millennial population grew. Both of those populations are at basically the same level now. And we all know that millennials, those under 40 or 35 or wherever the cutoff is, 80% vote green, socialist bullshit. Problem is with the boomer population, this is where the Teals are coming from. So the middle-aged, late-aged women that support the Teals in inner city seats tend to come from the boomer population because they're the younger part of that population. Their husbands worked all their life. Their husbands are lawyers. They're doctors. They're very well-off people. So the portion of the demographics in the boomers is also now going left because it's the younger part of the boomer generation that is closer to my generation, right? But had all the benefits of a sugar daddy that got him everything, right? So demographics plays a massive, more than what people realise in voting trends and all that. And it really showed in this election. But it didn't help either party. That's why the vote, the primary vote from both major parties is down. So where does this leave us? Without a credible opposition in places like Victoria, Queensland, WA, a conservative base. Even some guys that I know in Victoria who are conservative business owners, they live in Shepparton and Wodonga and all that, so those sort of outer areas. They said that their wives voted for Labor and that because there was just no policy of the Nats. You know, one of the guys that I know, he couldn't vote anything but Nats. You know, he would go in there, and if he tried to mark something else, his hand would explode. But he said his wife this time, and they openly discussed it, she voted Labor, and that's what we're starting to see. If you don't have a credible alternative, people will just go for the real thing. You know, so if you're trying to slide left, well, why go for an imitation when you get the real thing? It's like buying a Gucci handbag. You know, why would you buy, if you can afford it, why would you buy the fake when you can buy the real thing? You'll go for the real thing. It's just human psychology. And most time, 9 times out of 10, if you look at people that buy fakes, you will see what you'll see is people will buy the fake until they can afford the real thing and then buy it. You'll see that it's a human behaviour type thing, and that's the problem. In Australia, we don't have a credible Conservative Party that is out there promoting conservative values. Now, if you have a look around the world where conservative values have been taken to the election, they've won resoundingly. Florida, it went from being a purple state, you know, where it was pretty much 50% Democrat, 50% Republican, to being like 80% Republican, you know, in 2 elections under DeSantis. It's incredible. You know, he turned Palm Beach Jews, right? That's just nearly unheard of. You know, they normally voted, you know, Democrat more than anything. You know, because they're all New York connected. We've seen in Sweden, Conservative Party got up. We've seen in Italy, Meloni, conservative values get up. So if you vote Conservative, there's people out there that will vote for you. Italy has a different demographic. Sweden has a different demographic, and Florida definitely has a different demographic. I'd be interested to see what happens when a lot of the oldies die in Florida, whether it turns back Democrat or not. But let's see. Italy has an aging population still. It doesn't have a very young drive because most of the young people in Italy fled and they went and worked somewhere else. So now we're getting into international stuff, so I'll leave it there.
Yeah, so my guess is like you said, the millennials rate has pretty much doubled now, up to 36%, and probably will just keep increasing is my guess, and I'm assuming you're the same. But
it'll get to 50%. So expect the millennials to get to 50% of the population.
Gee, that's just ridiculous. Do you think
of the voting population?
Well, if that's the case, and like obviously most millennials are uneducated when it comes to voting and politics. So do you think that'll make Australia further away from a conservative state?
100%. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. And this is why you need to understand cycles, how cycles work, how age demographics go in waves, how different mentalities and different education standards affect different population groups. So if you have a look at the standard of education from millennials versus my generation, and I'm an Xer, I think they call us, it's totally different. Totally different. So, but there's just not enough of my generation, you know. So